Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. Pop my hat up a little bit so you can see me a little better. We are doing kind of a project shop vehicle update, wrench on some stuff, show you a little bit of that, go into the thought process for some of this stuff, and just update you on some builds. This was a video that I put it out there, I think on YouTube and Instagram, and an overwhelming amount of you said, yeah, you want to see this type of video. So right now I have a lot of projects going on, and little bits and pieces. I've actually filmed quite a bit, and I get asked quite a bit, actually, to see like the actual working on of the vehicles. And usually I don't do it because I'll like remember to film one segment and then just get into it and not film anything else. So I filmed a bit while I was working on stuff this week. And so I'll try and throw all that into this video, obviously. And the reason is this summer, really, I'm working on a lot of things, and that makes it hard for the audience to connect with me, probably. That's why singular focus channels work really well, like a channel that's just about Tacomas, or a channel that's just about cameras, or a channel that's just about guns, or whatever it is. Those do well, and my channel is just about so many random things, and even in the vehicular lane of my channel, I'm doing all kinds of different weird stuff, from Tacoma stuff to 450 now. Lexus is just like what is in the barn. The Tundra is outside. A lot of stuff, and I get it's hard to track. And yeah, I'm rambling a bit, and this video is going to be a lot of rambling. But this video is just kind of to show you a little bit of everything, because otherwise a lot of this stuff won't make it into any videos. And so anyway, give me some feedback on this video. Let me know like what you didn't like about it, what you did like about it, what you'd like to see moving forward in these kind of shop updates. Like eventually this will be like a barn build update once I build this thing out, and that'll be coming eventually. But yeah, in this realm of video, kind of let me know what aspects you'd like to see, and yeah, if you liked this video. So I actually filmed most of this video already. But the problem is it would have been like 3 hours long, because every segment I kind of filmed and didn't like transition from the previous. I kind of started every segment like it was its own video, sort of, but it wasn't gonna ever be its own video. So anyway, it was just way long. So this video will probably be kind of cut up, and I'll try to transition as best I can. But to give you a quick overview of what's been going on, I worked on the LX570 a little bit, finally got bump stops sorted, been doing a lot of stuff on the 450 and a lot of stuff on the bus. And then I haven't been, but I just got the Tacoma back from True that had been working, True Automotive in Denver. They installed all of my C4 stuff and then did a little bit of wiring as well while it was there. So I'll catch you up to speed on mainly those projects I was talking about it in a previous video. I got this baby on Marketplace. This is a TW200 that I picked up for $3,500. So I doubt this will make it into many videos, but maybe it'll be in some videos in conjunction with some other content there. But anyway, that's something I kind of wanted just to have, kind of for preparedness. Honestly, I'm gonna do a prepping video pretty soon that's gonna catch you up to speed on a lot of stuff. So, and then I actually installed a pull-up bar up here. I want to kind of put a full, or somewhat full, or at least a squat rack and a bench in here. But for now, I got a pull-up bar so I can just go do some pull-ups every once in a while, and then not much has changed here. Other than I got a crazy, like a 75-inch TV for like $300. It's a crappy TV, but a TV for the golf simulator area, because those are some of my other hobbies. So maybe we'll do a whole simulator breakdown walkthrough on a channel my brother started up that I'll probably join him at some point. I've just been too busy. Garage Golfers. But maybe I'll do that. Let me know if you want to see that. All right, before we get into it, actually, I got a sponsor today while I'm talking about golf and working out, and it is friends of mine over at Fabletics. So thanks to Fabletics for sponsoring this video. So Fabletics, largely known for athletic wear. That's how I know them as well. These are actually some shorts from a previous month's sponsorship. Probably my favorite shorts that I've just, just non-tactical, just kind of athletic shorts. So stretchy, so comfortable. They make kind of just casual, everyday wear as well. And then actually they're coming into the golf game quite a bit, or maybe they've been in the golf game quite a bit, but I am now recognizing them in some of their golf wear. They've sent some stuff out that I've actually worn golfing, and it's so comfortable. And it's so I don't know how, it's like I'm wearing spandex, but I don't look stupid like I'm wearing spandex kind of deal. I don't know if that makes sense. And super breathable as well. So in the summer months, stretchy, breathable is awesome. So they send me out kind of a monthly care package. So a lot of the casual stuff. This is a workout short, super breathable and stretchy again. Kind of a casual, everyday short. These are actually kind of, I got invited to a friend's wedding, and the dress code was elevated boho, which I had no idea what that meant. But anyway, this is kind of boho. Boho must be in right now because this is kind of the boho casual setup, kind of a little hippie-esque maybe. And then here's a nice golf shirt where it's kind of a camo, kind of a lily pad camo polo. So they're golf polos. It's going to be hit or miss for you depending on what you're going for your aesthetic. But as far as comfort and fit, these polos are incredible. And then these are some athletic shorts. I really like these ones because they got some extra like ventilation areas right above the booty crack for that booty sweat. And then right in the crotchular region, it's more of a perforated mesh. So these breathe really, really well. And I don't wear them as much. They also have a lot of jogger type wardrobes. They also have this VIP program. I'll put a sign up link down below in the video description where you'll get 80% off your first order. And then it's a monthly thing where you can basically pause it, kind of cancel it every month if there's just nothing you really want or you just want to take a break that month. With that membership, you get a credit for a 2-piece outfit or anything up to $100 basically. And then the VIP also gets you access to monthly drops, exclusive VIP sales, early access, and then access to their app as well. So anyway, yeah, if you're looking for super, crazy, comfortable, stretchy, and breathable clothing, either kind of athletic wear, everyday wear, or for golfing, like kind of checks a lot of boxes in my life, check out Fabletics with the link below. So thanks, Fabletics, for sponsoring this video and keeping me comfy. So let's start here. I forget if I filmed any of it, but the F450, I've been working on a lot of stuff. So I got these Boost Auto mirrors because my mirrors weren't power folding or telescopers. And I figured with such a wide truck, these stick out even further than the dually. So my mirrors are they're wider than 8 feet. So Boost Auto sells mirrors that you can basically add the power functionality to a truck that doesn't have power mirrors, but they don't natively accommodate the cameras, which I do have. So it's kind of usually you have all the power stuff and you have cameras, so you probably wouldn't want to upgrade mirrors, or you have the poverty mirrors and you want to upgrade and you wouldn't have cameras. So I have a weird mix where I have the poverty mirrors but cameras. So anyway, I had to customize those quite a bit. That's like its own video that I don't even want to get into, really. I'm not done installing those. Another thing I noticed was my power outlets didn't work in my center console. And also, I had no air coming out of my rear vents. So I had the center console that was basically only decorative. Like it had, oh, I actually did put a safe in here. I'll do a full update on this truck a little later. But I did a bunch of research, and since this was the XL trim, it probably didn't even come with this center console. It probably came with like a very minimal, just piece of crap kind of on the floor console, or it might have come with a bench seat. Anyway, at some point, somebody converted this, and they didn't do it all the way. They didn't wire up the power, and they didn't connect the HVAC, the ducting, to actually get air back to the rear vent. So it was a hot day, and my kid was in the back, and I was like, I wonder if these are working, or if there's like a separate control for the rear. There isn't a separate control for the rear. It just goes when you have your normal vents on. But I put my hand back there, and I was like, there's no air coming back here. What is going on? So I basically had to rip this whole thing apart. I had to order a couple components, and I had to connect all that. I forgot if I filmed any of it, but that was actually a huge pain cutting out, because there's like a section in here that like is impossible to access, that you basically have to cut out, and I used a little Dremel and like kind of got up there and got a little janky. Anyway, now and then I had to wire a bunch of stuff up, like manually wire some stuff up to get things going. So now I have power, now I have vents. It has been depouring the poor man's truck. It has been a lot of work, and I still do want to put the cat skin seat covers on here. But again, I think I'll just do, I'm due for a whole dedicated video on the 450, so I won't talk too much more on that. So the LX, I'll show a little bit of this, but basically I went to install bump stops like 6 months ago and snapped all the bolts. Just they were so rusted, and I was being impatient, and I snapped them. So let me talk about that a little bit here. So here we're down in my driver's side front, wheel suspension area. I needed to extend the bump stops, and there's actually 2 spots. It's all rusted obviously in here. One here and one here, and I snapped both bolts off. This was like a year ago when I was working on this, so I've been running with no bump stops. But problem is I can't really flex out. I got to be really cognizant of when I'm wheeling to not let this tire tuck too high, which obviously is a huge pain. Like on more minor trails or when there's multiple lines, I can get my flex to where my tire is not just eating away at my washer reservoir here. But not always the case, especially if I go on some harder trails where I can't take any other lines and I'm just gonna need to flex. I was able to, you see that little rubber thing right, where's my finger? Right there. That's the bump stop. So I was able to get one on this side, but snapped both off here. I had some Durabumps there, but the rear one actually looks like there is a lot more space. So I have some bump stops from Perry Parts, which are longer. So if I can extract this out, which I had to cut down a couple drill bits and use a right angle, and that was the only one I could fit under here without having to essentially remove the whole lower control arm to gain access. So unfortunately I can't, the clearances aren't enough to get under the front one, and it's a bunch of rusted bolts, so I don't feel like spending a week getting this lower control arm down. I may need to in the end, but basically I started drilling this one out, and then I'll use a little bolt extraction removal tool, and then we'll maybe be able to get it out. But you can see there, this drill at least in there. So tried some bolt extractors on there. Anybody who has used bolt extractors and works on old vehicles, there's like a 5% success rate in a certain scenario. So what I am having to do is cut down and make a bunch of stubby drill bits from an old set of drill bits I have, so they can get in my little right angle drill, and I can drill out a spot big enough. I'd like to use the original bolt that came with the bump stops. Drill out a spot big enough to put this bolt. It's an M10 bolt. And then I will tap a new hole for that M10 bolt. So how much of the process I'll show you, I don't know. Probably not much, but safety first. Safety first. All right, a few moments later, we got this one. So this is the tallest one that I have. So I'm gonna put the tire back on, cycle the suspension, and see what we got, basically. Shearing the bolts, removing the 2 OEM bump stops, shearing the bolts right off without much force, mind you. I wasn't using a breaker bar. I wasn't using anything. I was using probably this right here. And I sheared off the M10 bolts. Yes, I do lift, but I didn't put that much force into them. So I've sheared dozens of bolts off in my life because A, I didn't have the patience, or B, the bolts just couldn't come off. And I tried every method and eventually ended up shearing the bolts anyway. But there's a valuable lesson to be learned that I'm working on right now. It's a lesson that I haven't really quite learned myself. But here, you see lots of rust. Well, I don't know, do you see? This is the problem with filming this kind of stuff. It's hard to shine light. I need just better lights, I guess, for working on stuff. But anyway, we got obvious rust in here. I need to get this up on a lift and really do some big rust stuff. But this is the factory bump stop on the LX570. It impacts the axle here, and it prevents your travel from going too high. Either A, because your tires are up in your fender wells, like mine are, or B, so you don't blow out your shocks when you compress too much. Compressing too much causes problems. That's why a lot of vehicles have bump stops. Now, if you're like a Baja truck or something, you get like hydro bumps and all kinds of fancy stuff. But I actually have Dura bumps and I have Perry parts, both solid options for bump stops. Perry parts has sent me a bunch of different heights to try out here. So this is gonna replace that factory bump stop. So here's like a shorter one, here's a taller one. So we got all kinds of sizes. Oddly, or coincidentally, I guess, we have a Dura bump in the mix, and they're 3 different sizes. So we got the Perry that sent me a small one, Dura bump's kind of in the middle, and then Perry sent me a taller one too. And then these are different bump stops for the front. I ended up putting the tallest one in the front because, well, I got big tires and they can't tuck up as well. So, I don't know, this is in the shop. I'm showing some shop stuff, but I'm just kind of educating newer guys as well. With an independent front suspension here, I have the car jacked up. I'm doing things a little more dangerously probably than I should, but if you don't know the mechanics of vehicles, you should always do max precaution, and I should too, so don't necessarily do what you see here. So I have things up on jacks, right? And when you have things up on jacks, this is just going to be a rambling video, as you can see. If you have things on jacks, floor jacks, then you want jack stands as well, especially if you're operating underneath the vehicle. A lot of people throw a tire underneath as well. You can never have enough kind of backup things holding the vehicle up. So I'm not crawling under this vehicle, so I'm not taking as many precautions. You know, I'd throw the big tire under there or whatever. You basically don't want to get crushed under the vehicle. If you're working in your driveway and it's on a slope, even more important to really chalk your tires well, because your car can roll out of the way. So take all your precautions when you're working on vehicles. But yeah, that was a little aside. So front here is independent front suspension. So when these tires tuck up into the wells, they don't really go, they don't tuck inward. they just tuck essentially up and then maybe even out a little bit, because that's the suspension geometry that the upper and lower control arms are moving the tire. So when the tire goes down, it actually goes in a little bit. When it goes up, it goes out a little bit. So with the front tires, you're not going to be able to tuck into the wells, depending on your offset, obviously. If my offset was in a little more, I could tuck in a little bit, but I have washer fluid reservoir and some other stuff in here, so I can't tuck that far. But in the rear, you can tuck up into these wells, because since it's a solid axle, as it's drooping, the other side of the axle is going both up and in, and then the tire that's drooping is kind of going down and in as well. Because if you can imagine, just as an example, this is independent front, but it's pivoting on the middle point essentially. So as it's pivoting on the middle point, this tire right here will go inward, and then this tire over here will go inward as well as it's going up and down. Anyway, that's all to explain a very simple concept of your rear tires. Even if they're sticking outside the wells, depending on your offset, again, there's a chance that when you flex up, you'll go up in there. So what we're trying to do with bump stops is allow us to get maximum articulation out of our suspension. The wheel wants to go all the way up as high as it can in here. You can see, I don't want to stop here. The tire can go up into here. So I want to maximize that. So you really want to dial in your bump stops. So that's why, luckily, I have three over there, because I have some friends in the bump stop world who have been kind enough to send me stuff out to dial in for my specific suspension. The factory bump stops are almost always going to be smaller, because your tire is smaller. So your tire has more travel, actually. So like a factory suspension, which I still have on this, I'm using the factory AHC, with a smaller tire will actually, this will surprise some of you, have more suspension travel than I have with bigger tires. So what I'm doing is limiting my suspension travel, which is not a good thing for off-roading. You want to maximize all of your suspension travel as often as you can, because the more you can articulate, the more suspension travel you have, the more your tires will be able to maintain contact with the ground. That helps for stability, but it also helps for traction. By not lifting my vehicle higher, I want to keep this vehicle nice and low, because again, this is the family mobile. There's a lot of advantages to having a low vehicle. The disadvantage is if you're not adjusting your suspension in such a way, which is pretty much impossible if you're trying to keep factory suspension, then you are reducing your travel. So again, if I was building this truck out to be, to go hit the Rubicon and really just maximize off-road performance, then I would do some different things. But for me, I like the smooth ride of the factory suspension. I like the low ride height of the factory suspension. So I will sacrifice a little bit of articulation, a little bit of suspension travel for the other benefits I have for this vehicle specifically. Again, if you're building a dedicated off-road vehicle, then chances are you're going to want to maximize your articulation. That's going to be the most important factor. So anyway, I got distracted earlier. A common method for getting rusted bolts off is penetrating oil. And then if you can turn the bolt at all, then you turn it a little bit, and then you go back. And then you turn it a little bit more, and then you go back. And then you turn a little bit more, and then you go back. And then through that whole process, you're putting some more penetrating oil. If you have multiple bolts to work on, it's good to give this one a break before it gets too hot or anything. Hit it with some oil, move to the next one, move that, hit it with some oil, move to the next one, do that. And then you can kind of share the load of the bolts. I will probably end up snapping one of these bolts, even though I'm going through this big hubbub about how to do it right. The other option is apply a lot of heat, which usually works. This is a little bit harder to heat where I want to heat it. Sometimes when I try to heat it underneath, you're heating kind of everything, and the stuck portion is really up in here. So if I could heat the stuck portion, that would be much more beneficial than heating it from down here, because heating it from down here, the hotter the bolt gets, the weaker it'll get. So usually in a scenario like this where I can't really heat the stuck part, which is in the frame, then I will just try penetrating oil and whatnot. And the reason we're doing this instead of just trying to muscle it out, again, like you can break bolts with a small wrench. This is why I'm using a small wrench, because it lowers the chance of breaking it, because you have a better feel, you really have a better feel of how much torque you're putting on this thing versus using a breaker bar or an impact or anything like that, because a breaker bar or an impact will just shear bolts right off when they're rusted like this. So a small bolt, take your time. It's better to spend an hour removing 3 bolts than it is shearing off even one of these bolts and spending over an hour getting a bolt extracted like I did with the front here. So anyway, that's what we're working on. All right, so we got 2 bolts out so far. This third one is very close to snapping territory. What you'll see is this whole part here is rusted. This part was kind of in the thread, and this part was kind of above the nut. So there's going to be a part right here at the, right between the rusty and the non-rusty, where I've found that the bolts are typically the weakest. So that is the part also that is the most stuck in there, the most kind of corroded. This isn't always the case. Every bolt is different, like people. But a lot of times you'll snap it right there. But then you're bringing this whole rusted portion down through the threads, and you have this weakest portion there the whole time. So as you're unthreading it, once you get it started, if you break the initial seal and you think you're good to go after that, you definitely are not even almost in the clear. You're gonna wrestle with the bolt typically the whole way out of here, because again, the threads on this part here are gonna be thicker and corroded. So you're gonna, again, work it back and forth the whole time until you're out. So this bolt, this one that I have left here, isn't even half of the battle isn't even done yet. All right, sweet victory. 3 for 3. When it does get tight, this is impossible to film or anything, but when it starts getting tight and you're curious, you need to be able to see the bolt, because as soon as your little micro movements are not translating to the other side of the bolt, aka you are turning it on this end, but it stops turning on that end, you're about to snap the bolt. So stop immediately, let it cool down, back it out, spray some more oil, and then work that oil back down in there. So you'll get it eventually, sometimes. So again, like I mentioned earlier, I think bump stops are designed to compress a bit. I don't know how far this one will compress before it just completely stops, but obviously it gets harder and harder to compress. So it actually acts as, an addition to your suspension, like the last little bit of your suspension, you start to hit this, and so it doesn't just stop you like a hard stop, it slows you down. Let's put this thing back together and flex it out and see how it does. Alright, so I don't have an articulation ramp. I usually just drive out onto my property somewhere and flex out. I have a couple ramps to work on vehicles, but they don't get this high, so they don't really flex this vehicle out that much. So we are sketch flex, we'll call it. Don't try this at home. But underneath we are, I don't know if you can tell. I can tell anyway. We're pretty compressed on that. It's so hard for me to tell. Obviously we're way up into the fender well. There's like a ridge here. What I'm gonna do, since I already have front bump stops on both sides, I put one rear here. I'm gonna, on this side, I need to do it still. So I'll put the slightly taller one on this side and then do a similar flex test. We're about max flex. The tire's not all the way off the ground, but it doesn't really have much weight on it. So we're approaching max articulation, which the LX, again, this is just the factory AHC suspension, does have some pretty good articulation. Again, just for factory suspension. A few moments later, and there is the medium length Durabump. We'll try that. Let's actually just build something marginally safer than that, and I mean marginally. Oh, 450, so good. 16 footers, 8-foot bed, no problem. I got a bunch of random cutoffs from another project, and I will use this other project as a tripod. Okay, sketch ramp over there. Doesn't actually fit under. Lexus doesn't have enough ground clearance, so we'll do the dually tire under the rear and this one under here, and cross my fingers that it don't go off the side. Guys, let me know if it looks like I'm going off. To make matters worse, don't have enough traction, so we're gonna give it a little speed. All right, so with no traction, or with no lockers, since I'm flexing out the front and the rear, basically I have 2 open diffs and 2 tires that aren't getting traction just on the smooth concrete surface. So I'm gonna try a couple different things. All right, as much as we're gonna get out of these open diffs, but this tire's tucked up, not hitting anything, so it could stuff a little bit more. This is not drooped very much in the front, and the front's not compressed that much, but we are compressing the bump stop there pretty good. So I would say, yeah, I'm using the smallest extended bump stop in the front. The rear of this one, again, like I explained earlier, I think is a little taller, so I'm using a slightly bigger one there. Kind of a wonky setup. And I don't know, the medium-sized Durabump and the small Perry parts probably would both work. So I may just be lazy and leave small on one side and big on the other side, or maybe I'll swap them. I don't know, but that's the little flex test on sketch ramp. And yeah, pretty good droop over here. Nice work, guys. And then I'm gonna do a whole dedicated video on the Tacoma. It's not, you can't see much of it because it's all backlit here, but I did the C4 high clearance overland bumper here, and I opted for the full hoops because I'm just doing, whenever it's available, I want full hoops because I live in the mountains of Colorado, and you know, deer protection and whatnot, but also I want all my vehicles to be kind of preparedness centric. So I don't want a humanoid or animal strike to render my vehicle inoperable. So I want to protect the front end, my radiator, you know, my lights, intercoolers, like a bunch of stuff, fragile stuff in here where when you don't have the bull bar, and you just have a bumper, this is all exposed to damage. So this adds an extra layer of protection. You get something like this. I'm putting a crazy bumper on the F450. You'll see that later. And then this is the bumper that came on the bug out bus, the poor man's earth roamer. It's a ranch hand, which I don't know much about them. Some people in the more overland space say, you know, ranch hands are more decorative, but I don't think that's the case at all. This is like a beefy I-beam here. It seems very stout, and then even has this grill that kind of protects your radiator from larger rocks or birds or whatever. So this is actually a super protective bumper on there. But anyway, in addition to that, we fixed everything up from the accident. I took it into Groove. Toyota, they recalibrated the sensors, and they had to reset a couple things from the accident. All good now. Again, I'll talk about all this stuff in dedicated video, but sliders, skids, rear bumper, sick. Now the 450 has been a bit of, I'm hitting some nightmare stuff that's just a pain. I'll talk about some of that real quick right here. The longer the parts have been in here without being changed, rust, heat, all of this stuff really causes parts to bind. So if you work on old vehicles, this is no duh. But if you haven't, and if you're like, oh, I watched a YouTube video of a guy doing something and it only took 30 minutes. If you have an old and rusted car, chances are you may not be able to do it, or it may take you 10, 20, 30 times as long. So anyway, what happens on these kinds of things, you can see torches, punches, you get all these other tools that you typically need for the job, but you do need for the job. So I'm playing a little game of penetrating oil, letting it kind of get in there, hitting it with a hammer, and working it loose. Cotter pin, bust it off. Now I'm gonna just, I don't know, probably cut the edge off and apply a bunch of heat and try to pop them out with a punch. All right, well, next option is get an impact and cut them flush and yoink them out. No. So update, I didn't have the tools to get that out, and I was spending way too much time on one little aspect of the front end, and I'll never finish this thing in time for taking it out to Moab in September if I just get hung up on these little things that take me way longer than they should, and I don't have a lift, and I don't even, I'm now learning quite a bit about the front ends, but I don't know enough. Like, for example, I did a bunch of research on replacing the factory steering stabilizer. I bought an upgraded unit here. All the Googling, even the website said it fit. The 2011 F550, boom, bought that. It's too big. So I had to do my own little measuring, compare different models. And so I don't know if my truck is weird or if F550s just aren't documented very well. But I ordered, and hopefully it fits, but instead of the 2011 year range Super Duty steering stabilizer, I ordered a 2017 Plus stabilizer because that measurement for the fully compressed seemed to fit mine. So anyway, I'm wasting too much time doing stuff that should be simple, and I just don't have time to waste. So there's actually not too far from me, I found a shop that specializes in buses, essentially. And I called them and I told them what was going on. And so I called a couple other diesel shops as well, some specialty shops that work on, you know, Super Duties and whatnot. And even though I don't need diesel engine work, I'm actually going to do most of that myself, hopefully. I called a couple shops, and both of them said, we can't handle that. Like, it won't fit on our lift. We're not going to touch it. But I, again, found a bus shop that said, I told him what I was looking to do. And while it was there, actually, I'm going to have him maybe fix the door that's broken, at least for now. I talked about that in the last video where I'll probably change that out. But they know all about it. I searched for, not hours, but I searched for minutes, many minutes, which is, I'm good at searching. My best skill in life is probably Googling. Like, I'm really good at research, and I could not find like the gear replacement for this door because I think it's on a lot of that stuff is not on public facing sites because there's not Joe Schmoes that are buying specialty parts for Glaval buses, Glaval. Anyway, I told them, and they're like, oh yeah, no problem. We know all that stuff. So there's a few things that have been taking me too long. I'm just going to take it to this bus shop. They're going to get it up on a lift, look at things, and then stuff that I don't know that I might just miss. Like, they work on these things all the time. So while I'm fixing things that I know are broken, I figured before I take it on this long trip, why don't I take it into a pro? And they can look at some stuff and maybe find stuff that I don't know. So anyway, I know this video is about me working on a bunch of stuff, but I don't always work on a bunch of stuff. If I had my way, I'd work on nothing. But again, like, if I were to take all of these vehicles into the shop to do all the stuff, well, A, I'd be broke, and B, I can't because it's too difficult. That's too much drive. I'd spend my life just shuttling back and forth between shops, honestly. Inside of the bus, I got just get it more and more gutted every time. I took out the little rounded edges here. I cleaned off the floors, though they're kind of dirty. Again, I got the seats actually mounted in here. I'm going to beef them up a little more even, but I added another layer of 3/4 ply on top of this in that little section where the rails are. I put some marine decking on it, and then I need to go underneath and add a little bit more. I want to weld some plates up under basically that tie into the frame and the subframe, so that way these seats will go like even how they are now. I'm pretty sure I'd have to crash into a tank going 100 miles an hour for these to yank free, but I kind of want to beef them up a little more. So these little rails here, these seats these are from a 2024 or 2025 Ford Transit, and they slide in to these rails, and they are quick removable. So if I ever needed to remove these, if I just wanted to store some stuff here, that maybe there's a scenario where I'd want to remove the seats but keep the mounts in, these come off in 1 second. They're just, you pull this up and then the seat can be pulled off. Now these seats are like probably 75 to 100 pounds. They're, I don't know, maybe even more than that, honestly. Moving them around is a beast. But anyway, here, and then I'll have a table, dinette, sized out all the car seats and everything. So this is sick. I've been measuring out this is a 30-gallon water tank, and so kind of like kitchenette area, little mini bathroom here. LI Time actually sent out the bulk of all of my electrical components. So I'm partnering with them on this build with 800 amp hours of battery, charger, inverter chargers, dedicated chargers. In this setup, you'll see I'm working on a lot of redundancies. So redundancies in the charging, both DC-DC charging, as well as solar charging, as well as shore power, AC charging. So basically, I'm gonna have, I probably shouldn't even talk about that in this video because I'll do more dedicated video stuff on that. Ripped out more of the bus. You see this is so much light on the camera. Funny. This crack, I gotta fix some stuff back up in there. And then basically got the rest of the layout kind of sorted and where I'm gonna put the components and the batteries and all of that stuff. So that's all dedicated video stuff. But yeah, as the deadline to get this bus is fast approaching, I am just working. To give you some other updates while you're watching this video, if you're like, I feel like anybody that watches this video actually, you know, cares about me and what I got going on. So I'll update you guys on some stuff. The F450, I'm trying to get relatively built out, super singles, bumpers, everything. Hopefully, depending on when it ships, Buckstop said 4 to 6 weeks on that stuff, and next week will be 6 weeks. So I don't like to bug any companies when it's in their stated delivery time frame. But at 7 weeks, I'm gonna be like, hey guys, what's up? So this will be very tight. It'll be very close to whether or not I will have this fully done or somewhat done. But anyway, it's gonna be in the Diamondback Covers booth at Overland Expo Mountain West here in Colorado. And maybe we'll put something cool on the cover there, since I'm not gonna do this truck like I'm not gonna have a dedicated rooftop tent on there or anything. Though I do want the ability to put a rooftop tent on there. Actually, there's some other stuff I'm doing. I'll talk more about this in some future videos, but basically I wanna mount a hitch receiver on top of the cover so then I can slide in an ATV winch for just miscellaneous stuff. I purchased this ATV winch, and what prompted this whole thing, honestly, was I was buying some stuff during Prime Day, just some stuff because I want to make this truck the 450 kind of the ultimate prepared truck. And I got this set of jumper cables, even though I use the jump pack and like the Fantic one that just jump started this F550 not long ago. But I was like, you know, jumper cables, maybe there's a scenario where I would want them instead of the jump pack, though that'd be pretty rare. This one was on sale, and it had Anderson connector. So it has studs that go basically to rings that go to the terminals on your battery, then to this giant Anderson plug, and then the jumper cables plug into the Anderson plug. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of slick. Maybe I should just wire up that Anderson plug, and that'll just be like a heavy duty connection that I can use for miscellaneous heavy duty stuff. So jumper cable would be one, but then I could just run that power over to this ATV winch that I can just kind of slide into this receiver that I'll have mounted like in the center to pull like my golf cart or whatever up onto the Diamondback cover. So as you guys probably know, I have ADD or ADHD, undiagnosed, but I go on these crazy tangents, both when I'm talking to you guys, but also in life. So this weird tangent of this Anderson hookup to the battery, blah, 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 that led to ATV winch, all this stuff that I'll literally probably never use. And then I waste time and resources going down this random rabbit hole tangent because I make a scenario in my head where I'm like, that's a scenario where that would come in really handy. And it's a scenario that'll probably never happen. So anyway, I waste time and money when I should just be working on the bus to try and make the 450 capable of handling every scenario that I can imagine. So that's kind of what I'm building the 450 for. I've talked about it and I want to build the 450 to just kind of be the ultimate prepared truck that can just, obviously won't be able to do everything under the sun, but like realistically, the things that I think I might encounter, I could do. So yeah, what could have been handled easily with the come along that I already have is now turning into a whole system of, well, maybe that might be nice for the random off thing. Okay, so this video is super long. and I don't know if anyone will watch it. So hopefully you liked it. If it gets good feedback, I don't know, it doesn't have to crush it in views. Ideally, it crushes it in views, but even if it doesn't crush it in views, the few of you that watch it, if you liked it, comment, because I will gauge the metric of whether this was valuable for you guys and for me by probably not views again, since it's kind of a weird one, but by comments. So log in, comment, thumbs up, subscribe, comment, let me know what you want to see in this type of video. So that way, if I do another one, which probably will, I can integrate that a little better. Obviously, there's a lot of talking. You probably wanted to see more wrenching, but I don't know how to do talking and wrenching and keep a video under 2 hours. So that's something I'll need to figure out, because I know you guys' time is valuable. And some of you want to watch long videos and other of you don't. So apologies for the long video. For those that don't want to watch it and are still watching it, kudos to you. So that's it. Again, like I said earlier, we'll have some dedicated videos on some of this other stuff. And yeah, I'll just keep cranking away. Cool. Well, appreciate you guys' support. Until next time, take care.